97.3 Est-Ouest 91.7. RM1, it's 9 o'clock. The news presented by Ayrece Stewart. Good morning, Ayrece.
Good morning, Sophie.
The headlines.
Nationwide power scare narrowly avoided last night after Central Electricity Board works through the day after multiple engine failures trigger new alert system. Acting Prime Minister Paul Béranger sheds light on the arrival of the Malagasy private jet in Mauritius, confirming an ongoing investigation and raising concerns over Jet Prime Limited's operations. Colonel Michael Randrianirina emerges as Madagascar's new strongman as military leaders shape the country's transitional framework. Palmarosa case reopened as the Supreme Court orders a site visit to Beauchamp in the negligence lawsuit against Anahita Residence and Villas Limited. In world news, President Donald Trump confirms authorizing CIA to covert operations in Venezuela. And in sports news, India to host 2030 Commonwealth Games after beating Nigeria's Abuja, marking the event's return to the subcontinent. There was more fear than harm on the national electricity grid last night. A critical situation was narrowly avoided after a tense morning for the Central Electricity Board. 2 engines from an independent power producer and 1 CB engine were out of service, triggering the newly implemented alert system around 10 a.m. However, technical teams worked intensively throughout the day to prevent load shedding. Minister Patrick Asiavaden intervened in last night's 7:30 p.m. news. Let's take a listen to his extract voiced over by Sheza Juman.
Quand nous pécosons de 30 MW qui sorti dans l'année, comme aujourd'hui là, nous sommes à Fort George.
A 30-megawatt engine at the CB Fort George power station broke down earlier today. A few days ago, a unit from the Savannah independent power producer also went offline. These incidents have caused instability on the CB grid, affecting the balance between electricity production and demand. As we enter the summer season, electricity demand is expected to increase significantly. Today, the situation was critical, which is why a red alert was issued from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. The CB can only supply electricity up to its available production capacity. If demand continues to exceed production, we may need to implement partial load shedding. We are calling on the public to act responsibly and help reduce consumption during peak hours by switching off unnecessary lights, avoiding the charging of electric vehicles between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m., using air conditioners efficiently, ideally set between 24 degrees Celsius to 26 degrees Celsius. These simple actions can ease the pressure on the CB grid and help avoid power cuts. We count on everyone to make a responsible gesture for the benefit of all.
Un geste responsable. Si tout le monde fait aller, comme nous était aujourd'hui l'appel qui m'a lancé, nous pas poil dans rouge.
Repairs on the faulty 30-megawatt CB engine were completed shortly before 8 p.m., allowing the situation to stabilize. According to CB Communications Manager Thierry Ramassomi, electricity consumption dropped by 20 megawatts compared to the previous day, a sign, he said, of public responsibility and solidarity. Meanwhile, work continues at the 2 independent power plants. One has been offline for about 10 days, while the other broke down during the night from Tuesday to Wednesday. And moving to other headline-making news on the private jet in Mauritius from Madagascar. The Malagasy private jet is said to have left Madagascar on the evening of Saturday, October 11, without prior authorization from the Mauritian Civil Aviation Authority to land on Mauritian soil. This was announced by Acting Prime Minister Paul Béranger yesterday during a press conference in Port Louis, aimed at clarifying the circumstances surrounding the aircraft's arrival. Béranger also expressed concern over the operations of Jet Prime Limited, stating that the investigation report chaired by the Cabinet Secretary will be reviewed with Prime Minister Dr. Navin Ramgoolam upon his return to the country. More on this in this report voiced over by Sheza Juman.
The Madagascar-registered private jet 5R HMR reportedly departed from Madagascar on the evening of Saturday, October 11th, without any prior authorization from the Mauritius Civil Aviation to land in the country. Acting Prime Minister Paul Béranger stated that the aircraft was nevertheless granted permission to land at Jet Prime Lounge due to a fuel shortage, according to the flight crew. The Civil Aviation Department had explicitly instructed the private jet not to depart from Mauritius before receiving landing permit approval. However, the aircraft took off despite not having the required clearance. Upon approaching Mauritian airspace, it then requested an emergency landing, citing low fuel. Legal action may also be taken against the aircraft as it failed to comply with international regulations before departing from the country. I am in favor of legal proceedings. The investigation report on the circumstances and facts surrounding this landing will be discussed between Paul Béranger and Prime Minister Dr. Naveen Ramgoolam upon the latter's return to Mauritius. The way Jet Prime Limited operates will have to be reviewed. Businessman Mami Ravatomang is believed to be the owner of the private jet. As of midday Wednesday, the case was still under investigation by the FCC. There must be a legal basis before any decision is taken to prevent someone from leaving the country. Mauritius is a state governed by the rule of law, and we will not act outside the law. The individual has, through his lawyers, requested permission to leave Mauritius either this afternoon or tomorrow afternoon. If there is no legal justification to stop him, we will allow him to leave. Among the 7 Malagasy nationals on board the private jet was former Prime Minister Christian Luensai, who has since left Mauritius on a commercial flight.
And staying on the subject, in Madagascar, political negotiations and power talks are now underway. In the capital, discussions are intensifying around the structure of the upcoming transition. According to RFE Colonel Mikhail Randri Anirina, now the new strongman of the country has been holding a series of meetings with 4 other army colonels. Together, they are working to establish the future committee that will oversee the military transition. The colonel is expected to be sworn in as president of the refoundation of the Republic this Friday, October 17. The ceremony will take place at the headquarters of the Constitutional High Court in what has been described as a spirit of sobriety, according to a statement issued by the colonel and shared last night on the Facebook page of Malagasy National Television. France has called for restraint and respect for constitutional order following the departure of President Andry Rajoelina and the military's takeover. Paris is for now favouring diplomacy and dialogue among the various parties involved. The African Union, however, has taken a much firmer stance, suspending Madagascar from all its bodies and activities with immediate effect. This strong measure is aimed at isolating the new transitional authorities and pressing for a swift return to democratic order. And also making headlines today, the Palmarosa case resurfaces nearly 10 years after the tragedy. You may recall that in December 2014, South African national Leanne Palmarosa was found dead in the swimming pool of a resort in Anaita, where she was staying with her partner Peter Wayne Roberts. Roberts was arrested and charged with manslaughter before being acquitted. He continues to claim that delays in emergency response caused the victim's death. The case has now taken a new turn. The Supreme Court has ordered a site visit to Beauchamp as part of the civil lawsuit filed by Roberts against Anaita Residence and Villas Limited for negligence and damages. This is seen as a key step toward reconstructing the events and shedding light on the unresolved questions that have persisted for a decade. According to the Palmarosa family's lawyer, Krisha Sawu, who is present as watching brief, this decision marks an important step towards uncovering the truth. And it's 9:08. You're listening to RM1, where we move to international news. US President Donald Trump confirmed yesterday that he authorized the CIA to conduct covert operations in Venezuela, marking a sharp escalation in US efforts to pressure President Nicolas Maduro's government. The New York Times first reported the classified directive, citing US officials familiar with the decision, saying the Trump administration's Venezuela strategy aims to remove Maduro from power. The administration has offered $50 million for information leading to Maduro's arrest and conviction on drug trafficking charges. Trump said he authorized the action because large amounts of drugs were entering the United States from Venezuela, much of it trafficked by sea. The Venezuelan government, meanwhile, has said Trump's statement constituted a violation of international law and the United Nations Charter. It added that the U.S. actions aim to legitimize a regime change operation within the ultimate goal of seizing Venezuela's oil resources. And finally, in sports, India is set to host the centenary Commonwealth Games in 2030, the second time in 20 years that the event will have been held in the world's most populous nation. The city of Ahmedabad in the west of the country has been chosen ahead of Abuja in Nigeria by an evaluation commission from governing body Commonwealth Sport. The city has a population in excess of 5 million people and has even been suggested as a potential bidder to host a future Olympic Games. That's all from me this morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. Stay tuned now to the Intimate playlist until 10 a.m.